Guys, I'm FaZe, and welcome to my first ever YouTube video! Alright, now that we got that out of the way, let's get into more serious business, right? First of all, I'm sure most of you well know that Blizzard has recently announced the latest Hearthstone expansion, which is Whispers of the Old Gods. And so this is me and my review of the cards spoiled so far. But, oh man, exciting times ahead. Like seriously, we're going to get more deck slots coming Monday, right? Which is when this video should be up by. I can't wait for Standard, for all the crap cards to be rotated out, like Shredders and Booms and whatever. But yeah, let's get right into the review. Alright, so first card that was spoiled is the Polluted Hoarder, right? This thing is a 4-mana 4/2 draw card, Death Rattle, right? And at first glance, it appears good. It appears okay. But then I ask myself this question, right? When do you play this card, right? Do you play it in aggro versus... Do you play it in aggro, right? And the answer is no, because if you're aggro versus aggro, then they just trade an Abusive Sergeant into this, and you're really behind on tempo. And if you're aggro and they play control, then, well, this dies to every form of AoE imaginable, right? So do you play it in control decks? Well, no, because it's got, again, like the Abusive Sergeant kills it problem, right? And as control, you're really far behind on the board, more often than not, versus aggro. So, yeah. So, okay, you don't play it in aggro, you don't play it in control. Do you play it in, like, a combo deck, right, to draw a card? Well, again, no. You would just play Polluted Hoarder instead. You wouldn't need this. Like, you wouldn't need the bigger body of it, basically. So, yeah, in a nutshell, card's not that good. I don't expect it to see play. Moving on to the next one. Corrupted Healbot, and this seems to be the theme with the cards, that like the old gods are corrupting existing cards. So we have a 5-mana 6/6 mech. Restore with the Death Rattle, restore 8 health to the enemy hero, right? And funny thing is, when this was announced, Youngwoo was like something like, well, it's a very overstated minion for the mana. And I couldn't help but laugh because it's just a pit fighter with one more attack, right? It does not have anything else. So the question becomes then, first of all, is pit fighter going to be viable in the new standard meta? And if it is gaining 1 attack and giving your opponent 8 life, like making that trait, is it good enough? And I would say no. Pit Fighter is not really that played, not because it's a bad card, but because it gets removed easily. It dies to like, excuse me, it dies to like a Fireball, right? Which is a 1-mana tempo swing for your opponent. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be good enough. No one really plays Pit Fighter anyway, because it's such a slow card. And I have the fear that aggro will stick around after the standard format hits, because, well, there's Face Hunter, which is always going to be around, and then there's the Face Shaman that has gained popularity recently, and that thing, it's like, I don't know, the card feels too slow to survive face decks, basically. And I would rather, honestly, just play a Pit Fighter if I'm going that route. Except maybe in Priest, because of Arcanine Soul Priest. So moving on. Validated Doomsayer. This is a really cool card, actually. It's a 5-mana 0/7. And at the start of your turn, set this minion's attack to 7. Right? So it's good. It's quite good, actually. It's quite good because Fireball doesn't kill it easily, anyway. And it's going to be good, but it's going to be good in aggro decks, right? Because your opponent can't BGH this and get the tempo because it gains the attack at the start of your turn, the start of your next turn. And in fact, it gains the attack at the start of every turn. So Aldor Peacekeeper does not work unless they Aldor it and then trade everything in, right? So I think it's going to be a good replacement for Felreaver because Felreaver is being rotated out with GVG. So it has the same mana cost and it has essentially no drawback. Like the only thing that you're worried about with this is versus Priest and their Cabal Shadow Priest, basically. Because, yeah, that would be really, really sad. So moving on, we have Cthun, which is one of the old gods. This guy is good. This guy, like a 10 mana 6/6 deals 6 damage randomly is bad, but it's not horrible, right? If it was a 10 mana 8/8, like on its own, it would be probably on the cusp of being good enough to play. Like, it could see play at a 10 mana 8/8 and dealing 8 damage. The thing is that with the cards that synergize with the old gods, and Cthulhu specifically, that have been announced so far, this is likely to become quite bigger than a 6/6 or even an 8/8 by turn 10. And it's a really strong card. The issue is, again, how do you survive until turn 10? Because if you survive versus aggro until turn 10, and you play this guy, their board is gone, right? Because if you're playing a Cthulhu deck, you're playing cards that build this guy up or give him abilities, or we'll see what gets announced next. But yeah, their board is gone, essentially. So you stem the bleeding, except maybe for some chargers or face damage. So you stem the bleeding, and at that point, all you need is heal. The problem is surviving till turn 10, and that's quite a feat to pull off versus most aggro decks. So Blizzard made this mistake in I think it was Blackrock Mountain expansion, that they printed all these cool dragons, right? And then there was no way to survive until then. Like, all the mana costs were at around 5, so you'd have to cut your Belchers, and you couldn't really play like the Belchers, and then you couldn't really survive well enough to get to like the dragon stage of the game. So the card is good, but its viability will depend on whether or not we get like tools to survive to play it, basically. Next card, Beckoner of Evil. Give your Cthulhu +2/+2 wherever it is. This card is good. This card is good, I think, because it has a defensive stat line, which means versus aggro decks, which more often than not play like Leper Gnomes, for example, and other like Abusive Sergeant and like 2/1s in general. This thing kills 2/1s and it survives, so that's quite good for 2 mana. So it has a defensive stat line, which goes again with the survival theme to play Cthulhu, right? And giving Cthulhu +2/+2 immediately is quite big. So yeah, if you have a Cthulhu deck, you're putting this in it almost 100%. Next card, Twilight Elder, another Cthulhu buffing card. 3 mana for 3/4. Give your Cthulhu +1/+1 at the end of your turn. This guy is significantly weaker than the previous Beckoner of Evil, I think it was. Yeah, because first of all, it gives your Cthulhu +1/+1, but it, like, a 3/4 is usually easily removed in Constructed, because there's all these things like True Silver Champion and Frostbolt Ping, and like just there's like things that can remove this at that stage in the game. You're likely to get two ticks off of this, because you're not going to trade it in for the most part, and if you do, you're not going to trade in such a way that it dies, so you get like 2 ticks from it. But that's kind of circumstantial. It's a little bit worse than the Beckoner of Evil, but we'll have to see if this makes the cut in Cthun decks. All of these cards, though, very good arena cards. Like the Beckoner of Evil, the Twilight Elder, just because they don't sacrifice anything. They're just vanilla minions. Right, so Cthun, obviously a very good arena card. Validated Doomsayer, not so much. You would have to be ahead on board, kind of like in the aggro scenario, so that they can't deal with it. And then the Corrupted Healbot, obviously good for arena, and the Polluted Hoarder. Again, you would have to be like ahead on the board, because when you're ahead on the board, like your minions' health doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so moving on. Stand Against Darkness. Now, in Constructed, this card is pretty bad because they're removing the Quartermaster. Like, Quartermaster is rotating out. So, I don't know if this is good enough. Like, you have the comparison to, like, what was that card? Dark Whispers with Druid. And Dark Whispers is a bad card because it costs 6 mana. This costs 1 less mana. But the thing is, at that point in the game, there's a lot of things there's a lot of AoEs that are activated at that stage in the game, right? So you have your Blizzard that follows this up perfectly. You have your Holy Novas, right? Your Consecrations are active at that point. Even like Arcane Explosion, not that anybody plays that, but still, like, you get my point. Every single AoE, aside from Flame Strike and Twisting Nether or what have you, is active at that stage in the game. So you play this on 5, they're not living. The dudes are not living. So if we get some more dude synergy, maybe this will be viable, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Okay, coming up, Hogger, Doom of Elwyn. Alright, so it's a 7 mana 6/6, which is pretty bad. And I don't know, it just doesn't do anything. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/2 null with taunt. Like, the problem with this is that you just play this and your opponent goes face, right? And you die. Because it's like at 7 mana and it doesn't affect the board immediately. So that's my reasoning. It's pretty simple. It's 7 mana. 7 mana is also kind of an awkward mana slot. So it's 7 mana, it doesn't affect the board immediately. Like, if your opponent's about to kill you, they're gonna kill you anyway. It doesn't prevent them from doing that in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not sure this will see play. And again, the Stand Against Darkness, reasonable card in Arena. Reasonable. It's kind of bad versus the Dread Infernal in Arena, because Dread Infernal is a prime pick which follows it up perfectly. But it's not that terrible because it's just 1 card. If it gets AoE'd by something that is not a Dread Infernal, right? Because in that case you trade 1 for 1. But if you get hit by a Dread Infernal on this thing, it's really kind of game over at that point. And a Hogger is not gonna like impact Arena at all because it's a legendary. You're not gonna get it offered that much. But even in Arena, it's not that great. Like, all you need is like a fireball and a small trade to like deal with this. So I don't know. I don't think this is that good. And the final card, Giant Sandworm. This card is very interesting. It has the potential to be very, very strong because it kind of has like infinite Wind Fury, right? Until it dies, essentially. So they have like, what, 3 minions on the board? You can play this and kill their 3 minions. The problem is, and it's a very interesting design as well, because it kind of has infinite Wind Fury, but it doesn't hit face at all. So I really like this card. I'm gonna try to make this card work. But BGH says hello, obviously. And well, Blizzard have announced that they're looking at a lot of cards, and specifically BGH in some interview. So this is going to be a very interesting card, if nothing else. I'm going to try to make it work. I'm kind of on the edge because if this works, it's a very strong control tool, right? Because you can make trades with this in a way that you overflow its health, right? So that it gets overkilled. For example, you make like 2 trades and you leave it at like an 8-1, and then you kill a giant, for example, or something like that. So there's something to be said about you making the trades, but it's an 8 mana card that again doesn't do anything on board. And Hunter is kinda hard to like survive till turn 8 if you're not like ahead on the board. So we'll see. The meta is gonna change so much in the switch to standard, right? So yeah, I don't know, but it's a very interesting card. Props to Blizzard. I love the design of this card, even if it doesn't turn out to be very good, which I have my fear that it won't be very good. Even if it doesn't, it's a very interesting card, and I plan on playing with it. So yeah, that's all the cards that are announced so far. Thanks so much for watching the video. I plan on making more. So let me know what do you guys think about the cards that have been spoiled so far, right? Or the expansion as a whole. Let me know in the comments. I will read all of them. And yeah, you YouTube veterans know the drill by now with the likes and the subscribes and all that. So yeah, that's about it. See you soon, guys.